A desert wind pushed dust across the forward operating base in Kandahar, coating everything with a fine layer of grit. Inside an abandoned hangar, away from the noise of generators and shouting soldiers, a young woman sat cross-legged on the concrete floor. Her name was Elena Ward, and in her hands rested an old M24 sniper rifle. It wasn't just any rifle. Its stock was worn smooth, the barrel dulled by time, and each scratch seemed to tell a story. She moved with quiet precision, dismantling each part, brushing the dust away as though she were handling something sacred. A Navy SEAL passing by the hangar paused, watching her with a curious eye. It was Marcus Luttrell, the man known as the lone survivor. He had seen soldiers clean rifles countless times, but there was something different about her. Elena didn't just maintain the weapon, she treated it like a living memory. Quick pause. Comment where you're watching from. And if you love these stories, hit subscribe now. The next one will blow your mind, and it's even crazier. Marcus walked closer, boots crunching against gravel, and asked, "Where'd you get that piece? Haven't seen an M24 in years." Elena looked up briefly, brushing a strand of brown hair from her face, then returned to cleaning. "It was my father's," she said simply. That answer carried weight, and Marcus sensed there was more than she was willing to share in that moment. Just then, Colonel James Steele entered the hangar, a towering man with decades of battle behind his eyes. He carried himself with the authority of someone who had seen wars shape nations. As his gaze fell on the rifle, his expression hardened. On the side of the stock, faint but visible beneath, the polish of Elena's care was an Insignia, two crossed scopes over a hawk's eye. He froze, recognizing it instantly. "The Deadeye division," he whispered, more to himself than anyone else. The words hung heavy in the air. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Deadeye division? Thought that was just a myth." Colonel Steele shook his head slowly. Not a myth. They were real. The best covert sniper unit ever formed. Men like Chris Kyle spoke their name with respect, and even Craig Harrison mentioned them once. They disappeared years ago. No one outside. The unit should ever hold that insignia. Elena's hands tightened on the weapon. For the first time, she looked Steele in the eyes. "It belonged to my father. He served, but he never told me the whole story." Suspicion rippled through the hangar. Marcus studied her carefully, but Steele's voice softened, a rare thing for the hardened veteran. "If that rifle truly came from a Deadeye, you carry a legacy heavier than any metal." Later that night, the base came under attack. A swarm of insurgents launched mortars into the perimeter, and gunfire echoed through the desert. Soldiers scrambled for cover, alarms blaring. But Elena moved with purpose. She grabbed the M24, slung it over her shoulder, and raced toward the guard tower. Marcus caught sight of her climbing the ladder 2 rungs at a time, determination etched across her face. From the tower's vantage point, the desert stretched wide, lit only by muzzle flashes and tracer rounds. Elena set the rifle on the sandbags, adjusted the worn scope, and took a deep breath. She exhaled slowly, just as her father had taught her. Her first shot cracked through the night, dropping an enemy gunner aiming a heavy machine gun at the gates. Another shot followed, clean, efficient, lethal. Each pull of the trigger seemed guided by an invisible hand, her precision echoing stories of Carlos Hathcock in Vietnam. Down below, Marcus and the colonel watched her transform from a quiet girl cleaning a rifle into a force that shifted the tide of battle. But fate tested her resolve. Midway through the firefight, the rifle jammed. A cartridge stuck stubbornly in the chamber as bullets snapped overhead. Sweat rolled down her temple, yet her hands moved quickly, calmly. With the discipline of a veteran, she stripped the bolt, cleared the jam, and reassembled the rifle as though she had rehearsed it 1,000 times. The next shot rang out, silencing an enemy sniper who had pinned down a squad of Marines. The tower around her shook from incoming fire, but Elena remained, unflinching. Every time she squeezed the trigger, another life was saved below. Minutes felt like hours until finally the gunfire ebbed, the attackers retreating into the darkness. The base, though scarred, stood strong. Soldiers cheered in relief, but all eyes turned upward to the young woman descending the tower ladder with the rifle slung across her back. Colonel Steele approached her, his stern demeanor softened by respect. "You carried the weight tonight," he said. "That insignia isn't just paint on a stock. It's a symbol of men who rewrote history with their marksmanship. And now, you've proven you belong in that line." Marcus clapped a hand on her shoulder. "You fight like a Deadeye. Your father would be proud." Elena didn't answer immediately. She looked down at the rifle, tracing the insignia with her thumb. "It wasn't just my father. It was everyone who came before him. If this is my legacy, I'll honor it." The colonel nodded solemnly. "Then you're no longer just carrying a rifle. You're carrying a division's name." That night, word spread through the base. Soldiers whispered of the girl with the old M24, of how she stood against overwhelming fire and turned the tide. Some swore she fired shots no human could make, others claimed luck, but Marcus and Steele knew the truth. It wasn't luck. It was blood, training, and courage, carved into her bones, carried in her father's weapon. As dawn broke over Kandahar, the sun catching the dust-filled air in golden streaks, Elena stood on the tower once again, scanning the horizon. The insignia of the Deadeye division glinted faintly in the light, and for the first time in years, it seemed alive again. The base knew that legends weren't just remembered. They could rise again when courage demanded it, and Elena Ward had become the proof. The desert air was heavy with the smell of oil and dust, the kind of scent that lingered in every corner of the Iraq outpost. Inside a quiet barracks, away from the noise of armored vehicles and shouting squads, a young woman sat at a long wooden table. Her name was Samantha Hayes. In front of her lay an M24 sniper rifle, its stock worn smooth by years of service, the metal dulled by time. She ran a cloth over the barrel, her movements patient, meticulous, like an artist restoring a masterpiece. Pair of boots echoed across the barracks floor. A Navy SEAL captain, Richard Markinko, known to most as Demo Dick, stopped and stared at her. He had seen countless rifles maintained in his career, but something about the way Samantha handled this weapon gave him pause. It wasn't routine maintenance. It was reverence, almost ritual. Before Markinko could say anything, another figure entered the room. Colonel Robert O'Neill, the man known for his role in the raid that brought down bin Laden. His sharp eyes locked immediately on the rifle. For a moment, the hardened soldier froze, his entire demeanor shifting. His gaze wasn't on Samantha, but on the faded carving on the stock, two overlapping circles with a hawk's wing. His expression darkened. "That, Mark," he said in a low voice. "Where did you get that rifle?" Samantha glanced up, a flicker of unease in her green eyes. "It belonged to my grandfather. He fought in the war. It was passed down to me." Marcinko raised a brow, curious. But O'Neill stepped closer, his tone serious. "That's the insignia of the Deadeye division. Most soldiers today don't even know the name, but those who do, they know what it means. They were an elite sniper unit, men who changed wars with a single pull of a trigger. Soldiers like Audie Murphy and York honored them, even if they never wore the insignia themselves." Samantha's hands hesitated on the rifle, her grip tightening. She hadn't expected anyone to recognize it. "My grandfather never told me much, just that this rifle had history." Marcinko exchanged a glance with O'Neill. "History?" Marcinko muttered. "That insignia isn't history. It's a legacy." Quick pause. Comment where you're watching from. And if you love these stories, hit subscribe now. The next one will blow your mind, and it's even crazier. The conversation ended abruptly when alarms sounded outside. A convoy preparing to leave the outpost was suddenly hit by an ambush. Mortars whistled overhead, explosions shaking the walls. Soldiers scrambled to their positions, shouting orders cutting through the chaos. Samantha grabbed the rifle instinctively, her body moving before her mind could catch up. Marcinko followed her, curious to see what she would do, while O'Neill watched with the calculating eyes of a man who had seen countless firefights. The outpost gates erupted in fire as enemy fighters pressed their attack. The convoy trucks were pinned down, unable to move, their crews trapped inside. From the rooftop of a half-ruined building nearby, Samantha set up the M24, resting it on the crumbling ledge. Through the scope, the battlefield sharpened into clarity. She spotted enemy gunners setting up a heavy machine gun aimed at the convoy. She squeezed the trigger. One shot. The gunner collapsed. Before his partner could react, another shot rang out. 2 men fell in seconds. Her hands were steady, her breathing slow, just as she had practiced in secret all these years. Down below, Marcinko watched her in disbelief. O'Neill's arms crossed tightly, his face grim, yet there was a glint in his eyes that betrayed respect. "That's Deadeye work," he muttered under his breath. The firefight raged on, but Samantha's presence shifted the momentum. She moved targets with speed, each shot clean and precise, covering advancing Marines as they pushed back. She wasn't fighting for glory. She was fighting like it was second nature, like she had been born to do it. But then the real test came. A shot cracked past her ear, embedding into the stone wall. She ducked instantly, heart pounding, scanning through the scope. There, across the battlefield, another sniper had revealed himself. Well hidden, patient, experienced. It was a duel, one that could decide the fate of everyone in the convoy. The enemy sniper fired again, forcing Samantha to shift position. Dust stung her eyes, sweat ran down her face, but she didn't falter. She adjusted the rifle, exhaled, and waited. Silence, stretched. Every second felt like an eternity. Then she saw it. The slightest flicker of movement through the ruins on the far side. She fired. The echo of her shot cut through the night, and the enemy rifle clattered to the ground. The ambush broke. Without their sniper and machine gunners, the enemy fighters retreated into the shadows, leaving the outpost scarred but standing. Cheers erupted from the convoy, the soldiers alive because of her. As the smoke cleared, Samantha climbed down from the building, her rifle slung across her. Back. Marcinko approached, his grin wide despite the chaos. "You fight like a ghost from the past," he said. "I've seen warriors, but what you just did? That was legendary." O'Neill stepped forward, his eyes never leaving the insignia on, the rifle stock. "You don't even realize what you've carried into this war, do you?" he asked. Samantha shook her head silently. "That insignia," O'Neill continued, "belonged to men who never missed, men whose names will never be forgotten. Hathcock, Harrison, Kyle. They honored the Deadeye symbol because it meant perfection under fire. And tonight, you proved you belong in that line." Samantha lowered her gaze, tracing the insignia with her thumb. "I never wanted recognition. I just wanted to keep my grandfather's memory alive." O'Neill's voice softened, but only slightly. "Memories fade, legacies don't. You've shown that the Deadeye division isn't gone. It lives in you." Around them, soldiers who had doubted her earlier now stared with respect, some even whispering her name. Stories began to spread quickly. Of the young woman with the old rifle, of the sniper who turned the tide of battle in minutes. Some swore she had eyes sharper than a hawk. Others said luck favored her. But Marcinko and O'Neill knew the truth. It wasn't luck. It was something deeper. That night, when silence finally returned to the desert, Samantha sat once more with the rifle. She cleaned it carefully, methodically, each movement slow and thoughtful. Outside, men told stories of her impossible shots, of how she saved lives when all seemed lost. The rifle's insignia glinted faintly under the dim light, and for the first time, she felt it wasn't just her grandfather's burden anymore. It was hers. The Deadeye division had not vanished. It had been waiting, and now, in the hands of Samantha Hayes, its legend had returned.